What's up, everybody? JT Sports Max, you guys with another video. In this video, I'm doing my 5 boom or bust 2019 NFL draft prospects. Before I begin, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more NFL videos and content. And also make sure to hit the bell icon so you never miss a video. And let's get into it. So my 5 boom or bust prospects. Number 1, I have to put my guy on here. My favorite NFL prospect in this year's draft, maybe of all time, edge rusher Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen had one of the most dominant seasons in college football history. In 2018, he had 17 sacks, 21.5 tackles for loss, 5 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries, and was a first-team All-American and an SEC Defensive Player of the Year for 2018. Now, Josh Allen is projected to be a top 10 pick, but he has huge expectations to live up to, being compared by some people to greats and stars like Lawrence Taylor and Khalil Mack. And I've never seen a guy get so many comparisons like that. I've never heard of a guy being compared to Lawrence Taylor, ever. This is the first. Now, I said this many a times in plenty of videos since I've been doing these draft videos this year, and I'm going to say it again. Josh Allen, he's not Khalil Mack, but he is going to be the closest thing that we will ever see coming out of college to Khalil Mack. And I stand by that statement, and I think it's going to hold true. Now, Josh Allen, he has a lot to offer. I think he's the best defensive prospect in this draft. I mean, we have a lot of talented edge rushers, but not any of them come as talented, even Nick Bosa, as what Josh Allen is. Now, Josh Allen, he can cover running backs, he can cover tight ends, very good. I mean, this dude can do it all. He can rush the passer, he can stop the run, he can get turnovers. He can just change the outcome of a game. And so can a lot of these guys. But Josh Allen can change the outcome of a game in several different ways. But can he do it in the pros? It's the biggest question. And a lot of people have been saying that Josh Allen is one of the biggest boom or bust prospects. And nobody has been putting him in any of these boom or bust prospect videos, but I mean, I'm going to be the one to do it, and this is my favorite player, and I agree with those people. He has to be one of the biggest boom or bust prospects in this draft, because how many times have we saw talented college football players be very elite and then end up, falling off in the NFL, not really doing anything? So we have to add Josh Allen to this list. Now, the biggest question for him is basically, can he do it? He already has the pass rushing tools. He just needs to hone a little bit of his pass rushing moves a little bit. But overall, he's a solid prospect. So his ceiling is basically Khalil Mack or near Khalil Mack. I think that's how good he's going to be. And then I don't really know what his downside could be. I don't really know. But overall, I think he's going to end up being a very good NFL player. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowl caliber player, and I think he's going to have a very good NFL career. And I think he has more boom than bust, to be honest. But I mean, he's a big boom or bust prospect. I'm not saying he's a boom or bust prospect because of his skill set. I'm saying he's a boom or bust prospect because of the expectations. Because think of it this way. Anytime you get compared to Khalil Mack or Lawrence Taylor, you got to have more than just 7.5 sacks for your whole entire career. You better be a 10 sack or more guy for at least 7 to 6 seasons, 6 or 7 seasons, if you're going to be compared to guys like Khalil Mack or Lawrence Taylor. 7.5 sacks, 8.5 sacks, that's not good enough. And if he does that, then I've considered this pick, whoever takes him in the top 10, to be considered a waste of a draft pick, because you're drafting this guy to have double-digit sack seasons, change the course of outcomes, lots of forced fumbles, lots of tackles for loss, and if you don't get that, if you just get a 7.5 sack guy, then I think that's a waste of a draft pick. So Josh Allen, number 1 on this list. Number 2 on this list probably has more issues than what Josh Allen has on the offensive side of the ball. We're talking about wide receiver DK Metcalf. Now, DK Metcalf went viral on social media after a freaky NFL Combine performance. He ran a 4.33 during the 40. 27 reps on the bench press with a 40-inch vertical while measuring in at 6'3", 228 pounds, and has 1.9% body fat. Even though that's highly debated and highly controversial, that's still very impressive. That all seems nice, but what landed him on this list is that he had 2 season-ending injuries during his college football career. One in 2016, his freshman year, when he suffered a season-ending foot injury, and then this past season in 2018 when he suffered a season-ending neck injury after playing in 7 games. He also has a very high drop rate, dropping a lot of passes in college, and he also has very poor route running, and is regarded by many to be the best wide receiver in this draft class, but wasn't even the best number one wide receiver, wasn't even the number one wide receiver on his team. Now, the upside, if he gets better at running routes, this guy can be scary. He can end up being what 2013 Josh Gordon reincarnated. That's how good this guy could be. And for all you NFL fans, that 2013, 2014 tear that Josh Gordon went on is probably one of the single best seasons that we have ever seen from a wide receiver in some kind. Josh Gordon went on an absolute tear those 2 seasons. And if DK Metcalf can stay off the drugs or whatnot, and if he can do what Josh Gordon did in 2013 and 2014 for his whole entire career, this dude is going to have an automatic spot for him in Canton. But it's going to take some development and some time and some patience to get there. He has the athleticism. He can cause some serious problems. But is he worth the risk, though? Because you have risk and reward. The risk is, you get an injury-prone wide receiver that can't stay on the field, or a guy who doesn't really produce that much. But the reward is you take a gamble. Maybe you take him in the top 20, because I think a team is going to end up taking this guy top 20. And I think the reward is you're going to get an elite wide receiver who's going to put up mind-boggling numbers. He's going to be a Pro Bowler. He's going to be an All-Pro. And he's going to be top 5 of his position for years to come. But is it really worth the risk? It's going to take a little bit of development for the first couple of years. He's going to be nothing but a good deep threat. And then eventually he'll become that solid, polished, all-around wide receiver. But how long is a team willing to wait? And how much development is a team going to be able to put into him, into making sure that he becomes that kind of talented wide receiver? That's the question to be remained. Now, at number 3, I have quarterback Drew Lock. Now, Drew Lock has a prototypical size with a big arm to go along with that gunslinger mentality. But we've seen a lot of quarterbacks with the similar skill set that Drew Lock has crash and burn in the NFL. Most recently, a good example of that is Paxton Lynch. Paxton Lynch was a guy that a lot of people were high on because he, 6'5", had a big arm, slinging it all around when he was playing for Memphis. Got drafted by the Denver Broncos really, really early. He had that project label on him. And here's what I don't understand, right? These little draft experts kill me when they say, you should draft him. You should draft the quarterback high, right? In the first round, race the first round pick on the quarterback, but he's going to need a few years to learn. Why are you drafting the quarterback this high if you need a quarterback to start? And you're drafting the quarterback this high. In the top 15, actually, that quarterback better be able to come in and play right away. Because if he can't play right away, then what's the use of drafting him? So Drew Lock is that risk. I'm eager to see if he's going to end up like Paxton Lynch, or is he actually going to be a better version of what Jake Cutler was supposed to be? Because Jake Cutler never really reached his true potential. And I strongly believe that. I believe that 2010 Jake Cutler could have been a lot better. Jake Cutler was supposed to be an MVP, Super Bowl winning quarterback, but he never ever reached that peak for some reason. He never really hit his true potential. He came close, but then he died a little bit back down, and he never reached his true potential. And I'm eager to see if Drew Lock is going to hit that untapped potential, and if he's going to be what Jake Cutler was supposed to be. Jake Cutler was a good quarterback for a couple of years, but he never really hit his peak potential. He got near it, and then he never surpassed it. And I'm eager to see if Drew Lock is going to be able to surpass that. I mean, this guy, his only issues is accuracy and poised under pressure. And he struggled against Alabama and Kentucky and Georgia. And his main struggles were his inability to make good decisions under pressure. Now I know he didn't have the best supporting cast at Missouri, but a lot of his interceptions and mistakes there in Alabama were about 70% on him, self-inflicted wounds, and he could have did a lot better. But his upside, strong arm, could make all the throws, could become an elite quarterback really quickly, and has some athletic ability. So he can be what Jake Cutler was supposed to be. What Jake Cutler never did was surpass or reach his full potential. Jake Cutler came close, but he never surpassed it. Now, number 4, I have edge rusher RASHAN Gary out of Michigan. Now, this is a big one. A lot of people have him slipping down the draft boards, and I never was really high on him to begin with because most edge rushers with a first-round projection and the NFL draft normally have good college production or at least have one big breakout year. RASHAN Gary never really had that. RASHAN Gary's best season came in 2017 when he had 11.5 tackles for loss along with 5.5 sacks. That was his best season. In 2018, his stats dipped. He only had 6.5 tackles for loss and 3.5 sacks. Now, I know he played with a stout Michigan team, but I mean, this guy could have at least did better. At least 8.5 sacks, and I would have been comfortable. And this is coming from a guy who was supposed to be drafted in the top 15 of this year's NFL draft. So I'm not really surprised that his draft stock is dropping. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if he slipped into the second round because when it comes to edge rushers, I don't think you should be drafting pass rushers based on athletic ability alone. You have to have something special. You either have to have a good set of pass rushing moves or you have to be an elite run stopper. I'm not really sold on drafting edge rushers based on just speed, strength, and athleticism. I think it more comes down to fundamentals and technique, and that's my biggest question with RASHAN Gary. Does he have enough fundamentals and techniques that he can be trained or be developed into a very good pass rusher, or what you expect out of a guy who you're going to waste a top 20, maybe top 15 pick on? And that's my biggest reason why I have RASHAN Gary as a boom or bust prospect. And number 5, I have Hakeem Butler. I'm 17 years old. I've been watching the NFL for 11 years, and the game has changed a lot. Normally, all people really cared about was how good wide receivers could run routes and how good they knew the position and whatnot. But now people, they don't draft by how good you are nowadays. Now you could be a 6'2" wide receiver, run routes perfectly, do everything right, and then you could still end up being graded out to be taken behind the wide receiver who doesn't really run routes as good as you, doesn't do everything as good as you, but only gets drafted because he has potential, because he's 6'5", over like 228 pounds and stuff like that, and Calvin Johnson comparisons. And that's why I have Hakeem Butler on this list. Now, I like his size. I really like his game. I've seen a lot of him playing for Iowa State. He's a nice prospect, but he struggled getting off press, and that's the reason why he was moved around on the Iowa State offense a lot. They have him playing slot sometimes as well because he struggled to get off press coverage, which is, I think that's a big, big downfall for a guy who is 6'5". If you have that size, I don't really think you should be able to be getting pressed like that against smaller press corners. And he dropped a lot of passes. So that's another big concern, because normally if a wide receiver drops a lot of passes in college, they normally drop a lot of passes in the NFL because for some reason it's just in them. Because I got a good example. So it's a slot wide receiver that plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars. His name is Marquise Lee. Now, Marquise Lee dropped a lot of passes in USC, and now he's in the NFL. He didn't play this past season, but I mean, he was near the NFL drops. He had like 11 drops. So I mean, I think it would improve a little bit, but I mean, that's still there. That's something that's going to have to be worked out with him and the coaching staff. I don't know how you correct dropping passes. I guess just getting on the jump machine more often than normal, I guess. I don't really know how that would work. But overall, I think Hakeem Butler can become a very good wide receiver. He doesn't really have. He ran a 4.48, but I mean, when I see him play, he looked a lot slower than what he did. He looks a lot slower in pass than what he does in the 40 time. So he doesn't really have that breakaway speed to me. But I mean, he can be a solid red zone threat wide receiver, and I think he could end up being a pretty good wide receiver. But I mean, if a team is going to gamble and take him in the first round, I think that's going to make him a boom or bust prospect. And I even think taking him early on, using an early second round pick on him, would be considered a big gamble. But the upside is there because he has the size, and if he's able to improve on his pass catching and getting off the press, then he can be a pretty good wide receiver. And that's it for my 5 boom or bust NFL draft prospects for the 2019 NFL draft. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. And also make sure to like the video and subscribe. Thanks for watching.